Welcome back to Blake's Black Book. Ali, I'm sure you're my only friend watching, so this one's for you, buddy. Today I wanted to talk about the invasion of Venezuela, what happened, what the supposed reason for kidnapping President Maduro, the president, was, and then, kind of what the real reason was. So originally, we were told that it was because of drugs. This is a story from Max Blumenthal at the Gray Zone. He's an independent journalist. He's written for other places. I think he's won some awards and all that. But either way, it says the indictment amounts to, and the story is from January 5th, so it's a few days old. It said the indictment amounts to a 25-page rant accusing Maduro and Flores, his wife, of a conspiracy to traffic thousands of tons of cocaine to the United States. Originally, they were telling us it was because of fentanyl. I guess they realized that actually comes in through Mexico and from Asia. Granted, a lot of the cocaine, I think, probably comes from Peru and Colombia rather than Venezuela. I'm sure there's some that does. That was what they were saying. And then I saw today, I guess it was today, on one of the shows I like, Jimmy Dore, they were kind of talking about it. Here's what they updated it with, or what the indictment was updated to, I guess you'd say.
Copying language. That's right. Copying language from it. The Treasury Department designated Cartel of the Suns as a terrorist organization. In November, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State and Trump's national security advisor, ordered the State Department to do the same. Experts in Latin American crime and narcotics issues have said it is actually a slang term invented by the Venezuelan media in the 90s for officials who are corrupted by drug money. And on Saturday, after the administration captured Maduro, the Justice Department released a rewritten indictment that appeared to tacitly concede the point. Prosecutors still accused Maduro of participating in a drug trafficking conspiracy, but they abandoned the claim that Cartel of the Suns was an actual organization. Instead, the revised indictment states that it refers to a patronage system and a culture of corruption fueled by drug money.
So, Cartel de los Sols, Cartel of the Suns, I think is what it says. It means, or translates to, but they were trying to say that he was the leader of this cartel, and he was responsible for smuggling all these drugs or trafficking and all this stuff. But now they're saying that the organization doesn't even exist. So it just shows kind of the shaky ground they're on. But here's the real reason for getting rid of Maduro.
Much of a surprise if you know that Venezuela has the world's largest. One of the main reasons for Washington's coup attempt against Venezuela is to take its oil. Trump said this openly on June.
I kind of screwed up there, but this is from June 10th, 2023. So 2.5 going on 3 years ago. This is what Trump said.
June 10th at a speech for a convention organized by the North Carolina Republican Party.
Venezuela. How about we're buying oil from Venezuela? When I left, Venezuela was ready to collapse. We would have taken it over. We would have gotten all that oil and would have been right next door. But now we're buying oil from Venezuela, so we're making a dictator very rich. Can you believe this? Nobody can believe it.
Now, this might not be too much of a surprise if you know that Venezuela has the world's largest known oil reserves. Now, this is not even the...
Which, I didn't know that originally. Venezuela has the world's largest supply of oil reserves. You would assume is the Middle East. Because that's kind of what all of America's wars for the last, for decades and decades have been, but especially the Middle East, the invasions of Iraq and Afghanistan, all that type of stuff, mostly over oil and, to be honest, to be real, opium also. The whole opioid epidemic kind of came from all the opium fields that our soldiers took control of. But either way, so apparently Venezuela has all this oil, and here is the she was the candidate to be president, and seemed like the U.S. was kind of backing her at first, and then I guess they changed their minds. Maria Machado. This is what she said when she was talking to Donald Trump Jr. on, I guess, his podcast.
Brightest opportunity of American companies. Forget about Saudi Arabia. Forget about the Saudis. I mean, we have more. Venezuela is going to be the brightest opportunity of American companies. Forget about Saudi Arabia. Forget about the Saudis. I mean, we have more oil. I mean, infinite potential. Venezuela has huge resources. We have a strategic location, hours from the United States. Venezuela is going to be.
So you would think from saying that she seemed like she was kind of poised to be the perfect person for us to install as the next leader of the regime. Because kind of like we did back in Guatemala in 1954, I think in Iraq in 55 or something like. But when United Fruit Company went in and overthrew their leader because, of course, American businesses or business owners, big corporations were losing money. And you notice how she said it would be a big opportunity for U.S. companies. Let me see how did she word that again? I'll go back and share it.
The brightest opportunity of American companies. Forget about Saudi Arabia.
The brightest opportunity of American companies. So you would think that would kind of set her up perfectly. But there's kind of a funny story with that too. Seems like they were kind of backing her. This is from December 17th. Max Blumenthal again and White Reed from the Gray Zone. But this was talking about the Nobel Prize that Maria Machado had won. Apparently, WikiLeaks broke some stories that the Swedish government broke some laws, I guess, by awarding the award to her. Make sure. Hold on, I didn't even share the screen. Let me try this. I'm gonna have to get a second monitor or something soon, because this is a struggle to have to constantly do. But here it is. Here's this article on December 17th. What is it? The Swedish government violated its own laws by awarding the Nobel Peace Prize to Venezuelan opposition figure Maria Corina Machado, according to an explosive legal brief filed by Julian Assange. There's some more. This was the criminal. By granting Nobel funds to Machado, Assange the Nobel prizes were established in 1901, according to Swedish inventor Alfred Nobel's last will and testament. The Peace Prize is meant to be bestowed on a figure who has contributed most to fraternity between nations, the abolition or reduction of standing armies, and the holding and promotion of peace congresses. Since its inception, however, the prize was marred by controversy due to the violent legacy of its recipients and the political ambitions of its Norwegian sponsors. In the case of one of the prize's first winners, U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt, the committee was criticized at the time for overlooking the American statement's naked warmongering in Latin America in order to curry favor with the nascent U.S. empire. So here's all. This was kind of besides the point. the main thing was I'd heard, I can't remember if it was from Jimmy Dore or Valhalla BFT, Ian Carroll, Tucker Carlson. I can't remember who it was, but there was like, I guess, rumors that part of the reason that they decided not to, the Trump administration decided not to back her as the new leader now that they got rid of Maduro, and they decided to back Rodriguez. What's her Delcy Rodriguez. I heard part of that was because Trump was butthurt that he didn't win the Nobel Prize and that they gave it to this lady, which she didn't deserve. She had no she wasn't qualified for it. It said there apparently it was, I guess, illegal for her to even get it from the Swedish government. So there was crap there, but it's also kind of funny that there's all these complaints about her not getting it or her getting it because I guess she was for like interventionist ideas and overthrowing some government stuff like that. And you saw she clearly was cool with, I guess, letting the U.S. oil companies, go in there and ravage Venezuela and their resources and make all the profits from it. But it's ironic that there would be any complaints about that because, ironically, the guy who created the Nobel Prize, Alfred Nobel, was a Swedish chemist, inventor, and engineer and businessman. He is known for inventing dynamite. Just let that sink in. This dude was the Nobel Peace Prize, dedicated to getting rid of armies and cutting down on militaries and all this type of stuff. It came from the guy that created dynamite. That is pretty insane. But I don't know. I guess I've also heard rumors that Delcy Rodriguez could have been involved, probably made some sort of deal to maybe get rid of Maduro and save her own ass, which, I mean, not necessarily hating on. I really don't know much about Venezuela or any of the stuff. I mean, I know they say Maduro's like a communist, so that's bad. They always say. I mean, we're basically a fascist government, so all a fascist oligarchy. So I don't understand really too much of what's worse. But here's Max Blumenthal talking to Russ Steigler from Due Dissonance a few days ago, talking about Delcy Rodriguez a little bit. Let me get to that.
And even Marco Rubio realizes Maria Corina Machado is a joke. Yeah, that's been pretty remarkable, the way they just threw her under the bus. So you're talking a little bit about Delcy Rodriguez, who you actually interviewed 4 years ago. Vice president, currently, I suppose, the acting president under the circumstances. And she says, reflecting on the torture, or you said, reflecting on the torture that leftists endured under cover of liberal democracy during Venezuela's Fourth Republic, she said the same forces who disappeared people, who tortured and murdered when they were in power, is the same opposition that has not changed its behavior, but points to us as the violators of human rights. Now, her father had been tortured to death under the old regime in 1976. Now, in public, she's been saying this has a Zionist tinge to it. She says Maduro is the leader. Trump is telling a different story. He's, according to New York Times reporting, they say they liked her because she was able to increase oil production under sanctions.
And notice how they mentioned oil. It had to do with oil production. She was able to increase it under sanctions, so that's good for her.
So they're kind of giving her the nod. What is the reality? Because there's a lot of speculation out there. Given her history, it's hard to imagine her collaborating. Then again, you don't want to be taken on a plane with wraparound sunglasses and headphones. You might walk the line. You've met her. You're very familiar with the situation in the country. But what do you think is going on there? Is she working with the U.S. or resisting the U.S. or trying her best to keep the U.S. from invading her country or kidnapping her?
Or you don't want to be tortured to death like your father.
Or you don't want to be tortured to death, right?
He was tortured to death by CIA trained guards or interrogators. So maybe you want to make a deal to prevent further violence. She has been one of the most powerful women in Latin American history and has been unknown by most observers until now. But I got to know her because she is very active in courting people she sees as influential in the media or politics. She's very friendly, and she also is very savvy as a government leader. And her brother Jorge controlled or presided over numerous government ministries in 2021 when I last saw her. And she was presiding over the country's COVID response. So she was on TV every day, and she had developed this presence across the country. She had also presided over the country's response to years and years of unilateral U.S. sanctions, financial terrorism, to see a revival in oil production going up from like 400,000 barrels exported per day to over 1 million, reviving the country's GDP. The Venezuelan economy had been experiencing a resurgence in the last 4 years, and it was largely due to her guidance. She was reaching out to China, to Russia, but also she, like Maduro, had been eager to make a deal with the U.S. So she's absolutely seeking negotiations and a deal with the United States. She said so in a statement last night, which I should say raised a lot of questions about whether she had made a deal ahead of Maduro's kidnapping, because it was so the tone was so sober after this very traumatic event just took place in Venezuela and the president was abducted. And I can't say whether she did or not. I can say for sure that I was told from sources, multiple sources, close to the negotiations from the U.S. side, that Rubio was seeking Delcy as president instead of Maria Corina Machado. And I said this on our live stream back in 2025. I might be one of the first, if not the first, U.S. commentators to say that, and now that's what everybody's talking about. But I don't know what is taking place on the Venezuelan side. There was her swearing in today. There have been rallies around the country calling for Maduro to be restored as leader and return to Venezuela. Hugo Chavez's 26-year-old daughter spoke at one of them. Nicolas Maduro's son spoke in Venezuela's National Assembly today, calling for unity. And at the same time, you saw this brief spat or brief moment of shooting around Miraflores Palace. And the official story is drones got too close by accident.
Okay, so I mean that was pretty much it. But I mean, she probably did make a deal beforehand. Which I mean, I don't know, good for her. I've heard, I mean, now I guess we'll see if she is really like being a tool for the Trump administration, if she's just gonna like kind of roll over and let us do whatever we want in Venezuela. Or when I say us, I mean U.S. oil companies, not us, as in anyone that could actually benefit from it. Real American people. But either that, or she could be like Castro and pretend like he's gonna go along with it, and then, or pretend like she's gonna go along with it, and then kind of be like, nah, just kidding. But I mean, we see what happens every time the U.S. goes in some other country and overthrows their leader and puts someone in charge. I mean, it started decades ago, like I said, in Guatemala and Iraq back in the 50s, or Iran back in the, I don't know why I said Iraq, Iran back in the 50s. I guess she, when I say she, Delcy Rodriguez, if she is going to be the leader, she could either be go the rebellious Castro route, or, well, she can go that way and it works out kind of like she did, except she will have to survive 700 and something attempts on her life, so she might not want to deal with that. Or, it would be like what happened with Saddam Hussein in Iraq. Supposedly there was weapons of mass destruction, so we had to go in there and get rid of him. Kind of like the narrative they're trying to spin now with Iran, or Libya. Be like Gaddafi, just get, you know, taken out by your own people and have a stick shoved up your rectum and die that way. Which that's a wild one too, because I mean, the country went from like the richest, most successful country in Africa to having open slave trades now because we decided to go in and get rid of him because he wanted to create a unified dollar, African currency, not dollar currency, wanted to get off the US dollar, so we had to get rid of him. And then Bashar al-Assad with Syria finally got rid of him, and now there's former Al-Qaeda member as the president or as the leader. So, you know, it's ridiculous. It's insane. Yeah, I don't know. I can't understand. I guess we'll just have to wait and see if she's gonna be a badass or not. But what it seems like, she probably already made a deal ahead of time. So it really all came down to the oil and cooperation. Even though she's not Maria Machado, she's still going along with the same thing, I guess. There will be a lot of U.S. opportunities for U.S. companies, so that's good to know. Well, thanks for watching.